Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. They were going to be weeks, and it's turning out to just not be that way. But this is the third video that I'm making that I'm talking about the reading that I've been doing. A couple books to talk about today, and I did finish Splendid in the Vial. I'd been talking about that one for a couple weeks at this point, so it was nice to be able to finish that. This week, I'm going to be talking about how far I've gotten in Dune. When we talked about Splendid in the Vial, obviously a book that I had just finished, and then also a new book that I picked up called The Wager. But before I do that, I have to talk about these three books that I got brand spanking used from different, either online used or in-store used. But I had been seeing these around. It's the Lacanus trilogy, the Lacanus trilogy. I don't know. Very cool looking books. The first one's called The Shadow of All That Was Lost. And then the second one that I have here, An Echo of Things to Come. And then the third one is A Light of All That Falls. I think that these are becoming more popular because you cannot buy these books. And I've heard that publishers don't do reprints of hardcovers nearly as frequently as they do for paperbacks. I normally prefer a hardcover book. Normally what I do is whenever I'm reading it, I take off the dust jacket. It sits off to the side on my shelf, and then whenever I'm done reading the book, I'll put the hardcover back on. Or if I'm going to talk about it in one of these videos, I slip the hardcover or the dust jacket back on whenever I'm going to be talking about it. But I prefer to read the hardcovers. This one I was forced to buy a paperback. So my wife says that she prefers the paperbacks because she likes to feel like she's destroying them. I feel the opposite. I don't feel like my books are getting destroyed as I'm using them. So I'm normally a hardcover or Kindle reader. I do enjoy reading Kindle books, and oftentimes I'll double buy the book, or um, if I have the hardcover version, I'll get the electronic copy just because I do most of my reading either when I'm walking around the house or I'm reading in bed, and you just can't beat the light that you get whenever the book is making the light and you don't have to have bright light shining on you. But I'm excited to read these books. In the meantime, they're going to look really cool on my shelf. You get a good used copy whenever it still has the library sticker on it. But overall, I got all three of these books. Again, really difficult to find them. And I bought all three of them used for like less than $15. So pretty happy with the quality of them too. It's a good used book. I don't mind buying a used book if it's in decent quality because I'm going to end up eating it up anyway. So I don't need the book to be perfect. I just like to know that it's going to last a little bit longer. That's why I like the hardcover books. But I do want to give an update on Dune. I'm about here on Dune. Man, you can't beat that blue art gilding on this book. I love this book. But I am, okay, I'll say this. The thing that drives me nuts about these books is no chapters. And this is the problem. There's no chapters. And as I was trying to pull out the book to show you, my book cover fell out, which is a picture of me and my wife filming a wedding, having a lot of fun at the photo booth. Now, I don't know where I am, and I don't know what chapter I'm on. So I'm going to have to either scroll through or try to find in the book where exactly I am. But one of the things I'll say with Dune, and I remember watching the first movie, and me and my wife were both saying to each other, it drives me nuts how Paul and Jessica just cannot talk about what they're feeling with each other or with anybody really. The only one who's able to share his thoughts on anything is Duke Leto. And then whenever I'm reading the book, after this is my second time reading it, after watching the movie, I'm reading the book and I'm seeing how many times there's like italicized text that indicates this is obviously something that Paul's thinking internally. And Paul and Jessica throughout the books constantly thoughts to themselves. They don't share with anybody, which makes for a really good book because you can see their thoughts. But in the movie, I just remember thinking like, why don't they just speak to each other or anybody and just say what they're thinking? But they don't do that in the movies, so their characters might drive you a little bit crazy. In the book, it plays out a lot better because you can see their thoughts and you can read their thoughts. In the movie, you can't, and you just are frustrated that they can't communicate to each other. I'm excited to keep going through this. I was going at a really good pace until I picked up another book, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But before I talk about that, I got to give my little thoughts on The Splendid and the Vile. Eric Larson, this is my first Eric Larson book, which actually we have just bought tickets to go see. Eric Larson's coming to the Pittsburgh area. Did I just dox myself by saying the Pittsburgh area? Oh well. And he's going to be giving a talk on his new book, which is called The Demon of Unrest. I had to look it up because I don't know what it's exactly about. He pops out books all the time on a bunch of different topics, normally historical narratives, I would say. But he covers all different topics. So I don't know what prompts him to write about something in particular. This next one is a saga of hubris, heartbreak, and heroism at the dawn of the Civil War. This one is about, I'm going to try to do this off the top of my head. It is about the bombings of London that led up to World War II, the dawn of World War II. I don't know. This is why I am not a publisher, because I can't come up with good taglines like that. I didn't realize just how much London was being bombed. And World War II compared to World War One, World War One was fought with 1800s type warfare style. So your trench warfare, you would send hundreds of thousands of people into a battle and tens of thousands of people would die. World War II was a lot of bombing going over top of civilian structures and bombing strategic areas. Really, World War II is the first time that technology allowed you to be able to take a plane over a long distance, bomb an area, and fly safely back. I can remember in our history class, we had been talking about castles and how they evolved. And as people would figure out how to get into a castle, the people who were building their castles and designing those castles would combat that. So if people were throwing ladders up onto the side of a castle, well, the next castle they would build, or they'd make an enhancement to that castle so that it would be built out in a way that people couldn't just toss a ladder up to the side and climb up on it. Same thing happened in World War II. They would take planes even higher than the bombing planes, and they would drop essentially fishing line trying to get caught in the plane's propellers. Just wild stuff. So very good book. It paints Winston Churchill out to be a great leader, which in the fact that he was able to pull the US into the war and be able to talk to the people in London and give them peace during a time where he himself had to be fearing for his life, for his family's lives as people were being bombed. It was really an incredible time in history. And now I got to talk about the next book that I'm reading. This book was recommended by a friend, and it is called The Wager. My YouTube algorithm, I've always joked, is usually cooking recipes, uh, different tech, things that I'm interested in, large boats crashing into things. Like I'm a sucker for top 10 largest boat crashes of whether it's a cruise ship that's coming into port and it's coming in way too fast and just like takes out the whole pier. I will say it started slow and then it really picked up about halfway through. I mean, I'm not going to be spoiling it when I say that there's a shipwreck because it's on the cover of the book. But once they get shipwrecked, it is kind of wild what these people had to go through. And I think it's crazy just how well documented it is through dozens of people's journal entries. Um, Fascinating book, fascinating story. Have really enjoyed it so far. I've been happy with the latest books I've been reading. I came off of the waves of reading a fantasy book, Mistborn, took it right into sci-fi with Dune, and now I've got some two historical narrative books that I've enjoyed. Hoping to wrap up The Wager sooner rather than later. Haven't figured out what I'm going to read next after that. But before I pick up something else, I'm going to try to finish The Sandman. I'm going to hold my thoughts on The Sandman until I finish the third book and try to cover the whole third book, which is probably a dozen or so individual comics, maybe more than that. But I'll give my thoughts on the entirety of that book whenever I finish it. But that's a little update. I plan on still doing some more longer form reviews on some books that I've been reading, and taking you through some of the books maybe like I did on this video, some of the stuff that I've read recently. And I might even put out a video of, whenever people say TBR, I don't even know what that stands for, but it's the books that they're going to be reading soon. Maybe I'll even do a video like that of the books that are coming up, because right now I have a bunch of books that I could read and not really a plan. I'm just kind of I finish a book, and then whenever I finish it, I look on my shelf and pick something else up. I feel like I like this setup a little bit more, so I'm probably going to continue using this in the future. But until then, happy reading. You can follow me on Peloton at Matt is Sweaty, and this is Matt is Reading. We'll see you next time.